Welcome to Leading from Being with your hosts Marty Spiegelman and Todd Hoskins. Marty and Todd explore topics related to consciousness and leadership. Today they continue their series on climate consciousness, welcoming communications professional Felipe Benitez to discuss the roles of hope, compassion, and engaging diverse communities in addressing climate change. Stick around for the final segments, From the Edge with Todd on evolution evolving, and a conscious rant from Marty on nothing to rant about. Get show notes and much more at leadingfrombeing.com.
Hello and welcome to Leading from Being. My name is Todd Hoskins and I'm here with my friend and colleague Marty Spiegelman. Hi, Marty.
Hey, Todd. Good to be with you again, and hello to all our listeners. We're very excited to continue our series on climate consciousness today. Todd, why don't you lead us into our discussion and introduce our very special guest?
Thank you, Marty. In the last two episodes of this series, we have explored the inner work needed to address climate change, the importance of staying connected to nature, one another, and hope, and our common theme here on Leading from Being, that how we be is going to shift what we do, individually and collectively. When our actions come from the core of our being, connected to full consciousness or love or these higher powers, it has a compounding effect in the world. It could be overwhelming to consider how many people, how many actors need new actions, different behaviors, that will bring us back into harmony with life and earth. Or if we focus on how many governmental policies need to be adopted or corporate practices need to change, that seems like way too much power to confront. But we are not just lone actors trying to each save the planet. How we be does not just shift our own actions. It ripples like a raindrop falling on a glassy lake. That movement, those rings that extend in every direction, is the power that we all have access to. When we all confront the risks of a changing planet, it's not just what we do that matters. It's also how open, grounded, aware, and responsive we are in our daily being. As we show up in this connected way, our language shifts, our capacity to reach people shifts, and the world shifts from our presence. Today, we have a guest to explore the intersections of leadership, climate change, communications, and collectivity. We are thrilled to welcome Felipe Benitez. Felipe is an award-winning social entrepreneur, proud immigrant, and dad. He is the founder and director of Corazón Latino, an international nonprofit that seeks to reconnect communities of color with nature, arts, and civic engagement through love, compassion, and hope. With his 20 years of communications experience and as the founder of Benitez Strategies, Felipe has designed and implemented outreach strategies for advocacy campaigns worldwide, from protecting the fundamental rights of indigenous groups in the Amazon to confronting climate change to helping protect the rights of immigrants in the U.S. Felipe served as Director of External Affairs and Strategic Communications at the Global Commission on the Economy and New Climate Economy, a major new international project to analyze and communicate the economic risks and opportunities that arise from climate change, and to make recommendations to the world's governments and business and finance leaders on actions that will lead to more climate-resilient patterns of economic growth and development. Welcome to Leading from Being, Felipe.
Todd, Marty, thank you very much for having me. And after your wonderful introduction, your wonderful words, I don't know what else to add. That was beautiful. Let me start by saying that.
We're very, very happy to have you here. And what really impressed me looking at your work and weaving it into the kind of things that Todd and I like to explore is let's start with this, that there's an idea of leadership that we have in the Western world. And then there's an idea of what you have to do to create something new. And it seems in most Western situations, those two things aren't going together very well. somebody says, I'm going to do this and you guys follow me. And somebody says, no, we have to do XYZ to get this thing done and you can't lead it that. How in the world did you blossom your style of leadership to create such far-reaching collective results? You've done some kind of weaving from your heart out into the world. Can you talk a little bit about how you grew Corazón Latino and your other projects?
Absolutely. I think you mentioned a key element, which is leading from the heart.
Mm-hmm.
It is leading with love, compassion. It's leading with understanding that we all have different views. We all have different experiences. But most important is to find those things that bring us together. So I think no matter where you're a Republican, a Democrat, left, right, communist, capitalist, you're the CEO of a company, or you're just somebody that works by the hour with minimum wage, we all care about one thing, which is clean air, clean water, bringing a better future for our kids. And that is what we find brings people together. Some people may have motivations. It could be economics. Some of them may be spiritual, but there's always that common ground that we can find. It's hard to find it, especially in these polarized days where disinformation, where people are profiting, organizations are profiting from polarizing us. But I do believe that finding that common ground, that areas of understanding are essential, and nature brings us those elements. I really think that planting a tree, protecting a butterfly, protecting bees, it's nonpartisan.
Mm-hmm.
It is something that as a human, as a creature of this planet, of our Madre Tierra, of our Mother Earth, brings us together. So that's where we start. We try to step away from the politics, from the buzzwords, from whether we call it climate change, ESG, woke. No. Let's talk about life. Let's talk about love. Let's talk about joy. Let's talk about nature. And that brings people together. And that is one of the recipes, or one of the um, ways that we found at Corazón Latino to bring people together and build, as you mentioned, these broad coalitions and broad groups of individuals and organizations that really want to do good, that want to find things for not for us, but for everybody.
You've just painted an extraordinary picture of the way consciousness actually works to continually weave life together, not apart. That it's just so beautiful what you just said. And I think another thing that strikes me is something that Todd and I talk about a lot, is that there are patternings in Western consciousness that lead people into thinking and rationalization, and they get into a part of their brain that only looks at opposites and can't put them together. But if we're thinking, we're not actually in a felt sense kind of experience. And what you do, what you've just said, is you bring people directly into the experience, not going to thinking, but experiencing that love and the beauty of nature and how we're part of it. Would that be a fair way to say it?
Absolutely. And there's science behind that. It's not something that it's woo-woo or something that no, there's science behind it. Corazón Latino was an early adopter of a methodology that was developed by some researchers in San Francisco, that if anybody has an opportunity to read it, it's hardwired to love the ocean. And what that research shows is that emotions, images that bring back memories, that show us spirituality, that bring us humanity, will actually make us be more keen on protecting an ocean, in this case, nature in others. It's emotion. It's through the heart that we can convince the brain. So as you say, we can rationalize everything that you want, but there's nothing comparable to a sunrise or a sunset in the beach, which whether that reminds you of your homeland, the place where you were born, or reminds you of your parents, or whatever religion belief you have of makes you feel, that's what's going to inspire you. And there's also research funded by the USDA Forest Service that shows that when people, and I'm going to use a word that's very graphic, when people get their hands dirty, when we get and plant a tree and get the dirt in our hands and protect and connect with nature, we will be more likely to care, to act civically, protecting nature. So planting a tree can ultimately lead into a person voting for the rights of, or for policies, or advocate for policies in Capitol Hill, or at your local or federal government instances to protect green spaces. Once you enjoy it, you want to protect it. So for us, that's very important. There's, again, there is a methodology, and there is certain ways that as humans, we all share, no matter if you're from the Patagonia all the way to Alaska, it works. It works, and we try to utilize to learn about those tactics, and that's what we do.
That's so brilliant. And I hope our listeners are really picking up this profound message and passing it on. Every human being biologically, we have this kind of at the level of protoplasm. We have a programmed relationship to nature. We're part of it, and you can trigger the memory of that. Yeah, this is what the elders call timeless memory. You trigger it through simple experience in nature. And you're correct. It's not woo-woo. This is who we literally are. I love how you're saying this.
And I actually, Corazón Latino has, and I had the privilege of leading trainings for now probably thousands of public lands managers in the U.S., members of governments, federal, state, local governments, on how to connect with the communities of color or Latino communities and nature. And we always start by saying we help people reconnect with nature, not connect, reconnect, because we are already part of nature. We sometimes forget about it. Sometimes living in a city, or sometimes being consumed by daily, especially talking about urban and urban settings, we forget about it. But it is about remember who our mother is, what our madre is, what our madre tierra, and that helps in the process.
Absolutely, absolutely, so beautiful. And we do really get we lose our sense of humanity and our place in nature when we overthink things and split apart that way. So,
Felipe, I'm struck by the straightforwardness of the language from the heart, the corazón, as you said, of life, love, joy, clean air, clean water. And we've talked about how that experience of reconnection triggers care. What I'm curious about is effective means of inviting people into that experience. How would you encourage forest rangers or anyone to invite communities into nature? What is effective?
The first way, or the first recommendation I always give, is to understand that everybody enjoys nature its own way. There's no right or wrong way of enjoying nature. And I always, when we have a visual aid or a slide deck or show, I always like presenting a picture of, how a Western, let's call it a corporate way of enjoying nature. If you go to any REI or Lululemon or any of these brands, that you have the individual with the gear with their dog in a very individual way. That's a really great, and it's amazing that people do that and invest in that way. But also enjoying nature means bringing your family. And if you're talking about communities of color, um, it's not just the nuclear family, parents and kids. It's the grandparents, it's the uncles, it's the neighbor that you consider that spends all the time at home with you, and you consider part of the family. It is large numbers, and we bring music, we bring food, we bring cultural elements that make us enjoy. We bring a soccer match. Sometimes we bring alcohol. I mean, it is important to acknowledge that. So don't expect that people will recreate or enjoy nature in a way that it is how the handbook says, or what is, or how we traditionally do this in Yellowstone or any other park. No, there's different ways, and you have to be open, and you have to be receptive, and you have to be ready to adapt and get rid of your own biases. Of you're like, oh my God, these people are loud. Yes, might be loud, but they are enjoying nature. And by having positive experiences in nature, whether it's a local park or a national forest, we create a virtuous cycle of people wanting to not only be there, but bring others and share the joy that nature brings us. And that's why I always said joy. When we develop programs and methodologies for agencies to effectively engage Latino and communities of color, we always tell them music is an important, food is a very important element. Safety, you need to provide elements of safety. Not everybody knows the rules, and not everybody knows to distinguish between a poison ivy and a regular plant. So it is important to take all of those things in consideration. And it's not that people are not, well, in some places it is that people are not, or our communities are not enjoying nature. It does happen when there's a barrier in terms of transportation or cost. But COVID, the pandemic, actually shifted that, because as we saw, visitation in all national parks or national forests in the US and around the world spiked. Everybody was like, there's nowhere to go. I cannot socialize. Let's spend time in nature. And that was great, but that created a lot of challenges. So what I always tell is, don't expect or don't think that how you bring them. They're probably already there. They might not be the 6 a.m. joggers on a Saturday morning, or walking their dog at 7 a.m. on a Sunday. They might arrive on a Sunday, because if we think, for example, in any urban setting in the United States, usually Latino communities, immigrant communities have still work. There's in the service industry, so they will be working on a Saturday. So to expect them to be on a Saturday morning, it's simply not realistic. However, when they have the time off, it's on Sunday. But guess what? They probably will go to church. So you probably, if you're organizing an event or trying to engage, don't do it at midday, because then you're competing with a God or whatever the religious belief. And that's not going to end well. So do it in the afternoon. Adapt, change, be open. As one of our common friends, Nancy Conrad, says, it's not about thinking outside the box. Just get rid of the box completely. Figure out what are those barriers of entries, that education sometimes that needs to happen. For us, it's important to make sure that communities, especially immigrant communities, are aware of outdoor ethics, of leave no trace, and other practices that we need to embrace. So each community case is unique and has its own challenges and opportunities. However, there's common ground. There's opportunities: music, food, large groups. Another example, when you have a national park or a national forest where places or spots for camping are just meant for 4 people, well, that can be sure that a lot of communities of color won't respect that. They will come 10 or 12 or 20 to a spot. And that's not necessarily wrong. You just have to make sure that people understand the challenges, the safety. And of course, there is always the challenge of, and again, and it's with any community of color, with any community, I must say, with distrust of authority. So if you're having a thing, just be mindful of uniforms. Uniforms can all be intimidating for anybody, especially in this day and age. So anyhow, those are some elements that I would recommend. Simple, but if implemented, actually make a huge difference.
What strikes me is there's that annoying phrase, meet people where they are. And I always tell people, don't do that. It's like, because you probably don't want them to be where they are. What you're doing is meeting people as they are, which is very different. It's a recognition of their identity, their way, and acceptance and enfolding. And that's very, very different. So I hope our listeners can feel that distinction because it's very important.
We all are, especially in this country, especially in the United States, we all are all immigrants.
Yeah.
And I mean, to be honest, one of my favorite things as an individual is going to Oktoberfest. Because you have here the Germans having the time of their life when they allow themselves to be happy. They will invite you to sit on their table at one of the tents that it's super difficult to get because that time all of those barriers come down. So how do we replicate that? Same thing with Irish, Italians, even Scandinavians. It's
Yeah.
it is there. It's in our nature. We just the same way we forget about nature, we sometimes forget how to have fun, how to enjoy ourselves. And I do believe that nature has that power to bring those memories, to have us play. So when you are part of Corazón Latino, one of the first things that you need to go through is a series of trainings, obviously, organizational culture and all that good stuff. But I ask everybody that it's engaged in a meaningful way with Corazón Latino. There is an intern, full-time staffer, advisor. I ask them to take 2 hours of their time and take a environmental education course from a group called Project Learning Tree, which teaches kids K to 12 on how to learn and play in nature. But I do it because we are all kids. And those same activities like counting rings on a tree stump or identification or even use your phone to identify species, that makes you more connected with nature. And just one last thing that I want to mention. People tend to think like, well, uh, um, technology is bringing us apart from nature. It's isolating us from nature, and I don't think so either. I think technology, the term citizen science, using the power of your cell phone to even take pictures, to use apps that are for free, where you can identify species, where you can, there's even more sophisticated, where you can value or you can measure the value of a tree that it's outside your house, called iTree, from the Forest Service. All of those tools help you reconnect, play, enjoy. And in that case, another of our secrets is we always bring a mariachi band. So I don't care from where you come from. I don't care. And I've taken a mariachi band. I found one for a conference. I was very blessed to be a speaker at in Dublin, and everybody loved it. And there's like, if you can find for us that type of music, because it's so Latino Mexican, that's my heritage, and I like sharing it. So finding those elements and those opportunities to really play. So anyhow, that's a very long way to say I do think that we all have that capability and that opportunity to be kids in nature again, no matter how old you are.
Yeah. What a brilliant response. Because, I think you brought up something very important in that beautiful response, is that everyone is indigenous. Everyone comes from some culture. And I think more so in the United States, people forget that. And so everything else is other. And people end up like just not understanding where their roots are. So really what you've said reminded us all is that we all have a heritage. We all have roots someplace, and those roots are not just in a human lineage, but in the lineages of life. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I was telling, like, that's I think one of the elements that I enjoy about my work is really it's doing that. It's experiencing how other cultures. I love traveling, and very ironically, I do a lot of enjoy a lot of the European, because it gives me ideas on how to do the work in the United States. So last summer I was in Greece, just with fishermen, in Italy, dancing at Tarantella. I'm also an opera aficionado, so in Ireland, again, going to a pub, in the UK, finding all those elements, going to a concert. I like, again, one of my most precious moments that I can tell you in my life was going to a concert at Hyde Park in London, seeing one of my idols, Bruce Springsteen, surrounded by nature, having, enjoying. It was like I was there on my own. Uh, just just remember that feeling of sitting on the lawn of Hyde Park, listening to Thunder Roads, or to Born in the USA, or and then the next day it was Billy Joel, another of my idols, and listening to Piano Man, surrounded by nature. And those are the elements that, like, how can we replicate that to everybody? How can we bring that joy that music, senses, culture brings to you? And that's one of the main the key sausage, the key sauce, or one of the secret ingredients of the work that we do at Corazón Latino.
Felipe, you just answered part of the question I was going to ask you, which is, how do you mobilize people, mobilize communities? And one of the answers that I'm hearing from you is this focus on fun and play.
Yes.
Of that is part of how you lead, is inviting people into environments where they enjoy themselves, especially if that intersects with nature.
It has to be that way for us. It has to intersect with nature. So again, out of the toolbox of Corazón Latino, what are elements? Yes, a mariachi band, an opera singer. We 3 years ago we've done it actually multiple times, where we have outdoor events in different parts of the country, in Pennsylvania, here in Washington D.C., where we had opera singers sing Nessun Dorma or Cielito Lindo, or a song that everybody can identify with, and you have no idea what the reaction, how people start hearing when they hear this beautiful music that otherwise would be confined to the concert hall or to a recording, where you see surrounded by nature, by trees expelling phytoncides and other great elements and chemicals that help boost our immune system, the benefits of nature. So for us, it is an imperative, but you can also do salsa in the park, or silent disco for younger generations. I mean, anything that really uh, can attract a crowd, that can help people enjoy. Stay away. My recommendation is for this notion that volunteering needs to be painful, that you have to wake up at 6 a.m. and you have to pick up trash for 3 hours, and be honest, it's almost your forced labor. No, do it fun. Have elements that will say to people, hey, I did something to protect or to clean my favorite park, or to give back to Madre Tierra, to Mother Earth, but I also get something. And again, this notion of reciprocity. If you help nature, or if you help Mother Earth, Madre Tierra, nature will help you.
Mhm.
And why? Because it brings, and again, science-based, brings down your blood pressure, relaxes you. It brings benefits, creativity. I mean, there's so many that are now backed by science of those benefits of spending 15, 5, 10, 3 hours, whatever the time is that you spend in nature. And even just having a tree next to you, and sometimes when you're stressed, just taking a walk and just breathing, even if you're in an urban setting, just sitting on the grass, all those elements are what are going to make that difference. So it is about joy, and that's what we say, and we repeat it. Corazón Latino is about bringing joy to people, and by bringing joy, we meet our goals. And our goals are not just like, hey, we're gonna having a good time. No, our goals are measurable, and for us, that's what makes us unique. That we try to have a good time. That we try to think. We're always known, especially in coalitions, that they're the ones that bring the fun. Yes, we do, but we also do it with purpose. We bring education in a way that it's not felt like a formal class or a formal. No, we want to teach you. We want to help you understand better. And at this point, we've been helping for 7 years since we started as an organization. We've been helping fulfill these federal agencies' obligations by the Civil Rights Act, and now in the Biden-Harris administration, the Justice for the obligations. They have to open and offer the resources of the federal government to everybody, and that means everybody, no matter where you come from, no matter what your immigration status is, no matter what language you speak. Everybody has the right to enjoy our public lands. And that for me is such a beautiful notion, that it belongs to everybody. And that's one of the things that for me it's so unique and so beautiful about this country. And that's why I do the work that I do.
That's awesome. And you are a living example of a brilliant node of consciousness affecting and waking up the world. And what I was just also thinking about is the beautiful way you spoke about people contributing. We give something into nature, to Mother Earth, and we get something back. This is how consciousness actually works. It's one of the key principles in the South American traditions, Latin American too. And this investment, it produces a multiplicity of return that has a big ripple effect. And we do it via experience, and you've like cracked the code on how to invite people into experience so they really dive in and enjoy and learn. And the thing I'm wending my way toward here is that, yes, you produce measurable results. What comes from conscious engagement is measurable. And this is, if our listeners are understanding, this is an example of how you produce what the Western world needs in order to say yes by being conscious. Many people will say, well, we're just going to do something and measure it, but they're not enjoying it. They're not really engaging and investing. They're just trying to produce numbers. And other people might go, oh, let's do a little thing in nature, and they don't understand the investment, the actual engagement. You've got it. I mean, it's really brilliant, and the ripple effect is enormous. There was one thing that I wanted to see if you could add some insight to. A lot of people I talk to, they get completely distressed by the scale of climate change effects, and oh God, there's so much to do, we're doomed, and they don't realize the importance of the individual. What have you been learning about the scale of what quote unquote needs to be done versus the power of what happens when we actually engage?
Well, let me answer that question by starting or by saying that I'm an eternal optimist. And sometimes
Yay.
it's great, sometimes it's very challenging, sometimes reality.
Yeah.
So when you hear all this messaging and all those gloom and doom uh, uh, news that tell you that everything's bad, that we had the worst year in record, and yeah, we all lived it, and I understand. Or when we hear we only have 10 years, maybe less now, we only have 8 years to prevent catastrophic consequences. I tend to say it the other way. Hey, we still have time. We still have 8 years. We have the technology, we have the financial resources, and we have now the will of the people. I've been doing this work aside from Corazón Latino, working with communities of color in Mexico, here in the US, for more than 25 years. And when you have done this for at least 2 decades, it used to be that you got used to losing, that things would not be accomplished. And things are like, oh, we almost got it. Oh, Copenhagen. Oh, all these setbacks. But suddenly there was a shift, and I blame it on Paris, on that romanticism that Paris generated to international negotiations around climate. Oh, actually, it started in Cancun, and then I think it was in Paris, where I could start seeing a change, a shift in consciousness, not only by governments, by individuals. Before, we were outliers. We were just a couple of crazy people talking about, hey, we need to do something. Now, I just helped my 12-year-old son make prepare for a presentation on his English class on climate change. My 12-year-old came and said, like, well, we need to cite government data and scientific data. I was like, wow, I'm hopeful that we can do it. And yes, it takes all of us. And there is not one individual. We do need to recognize those who have made those changes at a global or individual level. But it takes all of us. It takes government. It takes private industry. It takes consumers. It takes politicians. Everybody needs to be, and it is possible. I do think, yeah, there's still but it is ending, and I see a prosperous, a very hopeful future. Yes, it will be challenging because we have done so much damage to our planet, but one thing that I've learned also over the years is that I don't do this because I want to protect Earth. I do, obviously, but it's about protecting myself. It's about protecting my family. It's about protecting us as humans. If we disappear tomorrow, nature will continue and will thrive. It is us who are in peril. So I have to say that it's important that we don't lose hope, that we see the positive, because we are uniquely positioned. We have this generation that we can still do. And again, it was probably 12 to 15 years ago, I was doing work with the government of Ecuador, which they were, you can have all kinds of points of view politically, and unfortunately right now they're going through a lot of struggles. But at that time, with the vision of their then president, Rafael Correa, and the new constitution that was the first constitution that gave rights to nature, that was the state had the obligation to protect nature the same way it protects its citizens. And that was so revolutionary. And then there was this notion or this proposal coming from a little country, for a small country that probably very few people know where to find in the map, about protecting. They have in the Amazon, one of the largest reserves of oil. It's under the Yasuni. The Yasuni happens to be one of the most biodiverse areas in the world. An hectare in the Yasuni has more biodiversity than the United States, Canada, and Mexico together. They didn't want to. Unfortunately, things happened. But when they came and asked the world, hey, we don't want to drill this oil. We want to preserve nature. Cures for cancer, for diseases, advancement in science can still be living in the Yasuni. We don't want to destroy it, but we need your help because our people need to eat. We need infrastructure. We need schools. And we can't afford it. So they went out into the world, and the world at that time laughed at them. World said, like, only Germany, a few nations, they had a very ambitious goal. They didn't reach even 10%. 10 years later, stranded assets in the financial world, it's now a reality. So I just see that there's so much hope coming from everywhere, not only the global south, from everywhere. There's technology, there's the opportunity to really bring, and at the end of the day, it takes everyone. And even though we may have disagreements with people like Elon Musk, well, he's done so much to advance in renewable energies. Yet we know it's not a perfect technology, but that's something. And we didn't have it 15 years ago, 20 years ago, or when he decided to make the patents of the batteries open. So we need to recognize that, and I do believe that those individuals, Paul Polman, and obviously now that we're seeing the leadership of indigenous voices, now that we are so proud and to have somebody like Deb Haaland leading the agency that manages one of the largest portions of nature in the world with the Department of Interior. It is the moment we can do it. It's just a matter of like, yes, what can I do? I can speak with my wallet. I can speak in the power of my vote. I can do it in a public forum. We all have that opportunity, and it is collective action. And we all can agree that a future without trees, without bees, or without clean water or clean air, no matter how much money you have, it's going to be useless.
Your passion and your hope are very contagious. I'm sure our listeners are smiling right now, and it's great to be smiling or laughing or having fun, even as our climate is changing. I have a last question for you. You just talked about how you noticed this shift in consciousness that started around the globe, around the time of the Paris agreements. And I'm curious about you personally, like being in this role, being at the center of so much that's happening. What has shifted within you? What has changed within you over the last 25 years of being connected to climate, of being connected to love, joy, and hope?
I'm more hopeful than ever. I see change happening. It's not fast, might be not as fast as everybody wishes it could be. And I know scientists may have a different say on this, but I do see that change. And again, one of the reasons I decided to do what I'm doing is when I became a father, when I became a dad. My son inspired me to do. Sorry if I get a little bit emotional, but sorry. Being a dad changed that. And allow me to see the world in a different way, in a positive way. That what I'm doing, it's not just for the next 5 years, not only for me. I'm doing it, and we're doing it because we care about the future generations, about my son's kids, their kids of their kids. I'm doing it because of that. So for me, that was in a personal way what committed me even more to what I'm doing and finding different ways. When we started Corazón Latino, when I started Corazón Latino, we can all agree things were not working. Message was not getting across. You very, very nicely, and I'm very grateful for what you said, that I cracked the code. Yes, but because we needed to do things differently. Mm-hmm. And what I can tell you is that I think in this year now, 2024, despite aside from being a chaotic, and we're gonna all the things that we're seeing in politics, especially in the United States. In the United States, I know that we're gonna see a lot of hope coming from the streets, and let me tell you why. There's an investment, an historic investment from that Congress and the Biden-Harris administration passed last year, or made a reality last year, the Inflation Reduction Act. That's investing $1 billion or more. I don't quote me on the numbers, but it's a large amount, and it's a really large amount of money that never been seen to plant trees. And the money is starting to go to communities, like to organizations like Corazón Latino, to organizations that have done this for decades, like Arbor Day Foundation or Casey Tree here in Washington, D.C. And we're going to see a lot of tree plantings, community-driven tree plantings. And that, for me, is one of the most courageous acts of love, of hope, is planting a tree. Because very likely you will not see it fully grown in its full splendor, but you do it because you believe in the future. And I do believe that we're going to see that around the nation, especially in cities, where we're going to see those actions that bring me hope, that bring me optimism of what's to come. And let's just remember, we have also an opportunity to continue be leading in, especially in the United States. Our country's a few 100 years old, 250 years old. There's trees near where you live, Marty, that are 5 times older than that. In terms of tree lives, which is just like a second, we still have the opportunity, but we also live in a privileged moment that we can really make things happen. And that's what I'm proud. I'm proud. I am seeing that more and more people reach out to me, reach out to other leaders like me, saying, hey, what can we do? How can we help? And it takes everybody. It takes everybody to be part of these funders, volunteers, community to get this done. So for me, that's what I see. I see that there's a global movement really to get things, and it's led not by us, it's by my 12-year-old, by those younger generations who are there and who will tell you even small things like, hey, Dad, you turn off the lights, or hey, Dad, watch what you're eating, and things that simply didn't exist 25 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, wow.
That is beautiful. Felipe, thank you so much. We're coming to the close of our time here with you today, which means it is time for our special segments.
Yes, Todd, you are up first. And Felipe, I hope you'll stay with us and enjoy. Todd, why don't you take us to the edge?
From the edge.
Scientists are proposing that there may be a new law of nature that explains how things evolve and become more complex over time. This law could apply to many different evolving systems like stars, mineral, life, a lot. The new law is based on the idea that all evolving systems have 3 things in common. First, they are made of different parts that can combine in lots of ways. Second, processes are constantly generating new combinations of these parts. Third, some combinations are selected and kept because they serve a function or purpose. For example, stars evolve by nuclear particles combining in different ways and new atomic elements getting created and kept if they're stable. The scientists suggest calling this the law of increasing functional information. It says that if a system with many possible configurations is subjected to selection for function, its information related to that function will tend to increase over time as it evolves. Everything is getting more complex. This law could describe both living and non-living systems. It is not predicted by previous laws of physics, so it may represent a new general pattern in nature that helps explain why things in the universe become increasingly complex. These findings were published late last year in the journal Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. So why do I find this noteworthy? Why does this come to us from the edge? First, we are moving beyond the notion of evolution as something that happens only within individual species. Darwin's theories of evolution focused on biology. Together with his views on natural selection, most people have inherited this belief that each species is passing along the best possible traits in their fight for survival. It's this animal versus that animal, this mate or that mate, me or you. This new theory suggests that evolution is happening at much larger systemic scales than just within individual species. It also suggests that in this fun phrase, novelty generation, these developments are neither random nor are they just in service of species survival. Novelty generation. Our world is playful. It's trying out new combinations and seeing what happens. And because there are patterns, this is not complete randomness. There seems to be an underlying intelligence that is moving systems toward new futures. To me, it's not important what we call this intelligence, this creative force. To know that all systems are continually in the process of creation, not just species adapting to survive, brings a sense that there is so much more happening, so much more that could happen than we realize. When we say systems or life are evolving, another way of saying it is systems and life are constantly creating new options. And if humanity is participating with this creative force, we too will have more options.
Oh, Todd, once again, a brilliant, brilliant piece and beautiful observations. That bears listening to several times. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Marty. I'm sometimes a scientific literature geek.
I love it.
Do you have a rant for us today?
Oh, I have a rant, a conscious rant, which I think seems to have been presaged by our wonderful conversation with Felipe today.
Conscious rant.
I'll begin by asking, what if there wasn't anything to rant about? I know we love to do it. We love to rant about things that aren't the way we want them to be, about that neighbor whose politics, we're sure, are totally absurd in our humble opinion. We rant about big stores putting smaller ones out of business, about the markets going one way and our dreams going another. And we even love to rant about climate change. But what I really want to say today is that most of our ranting is a diversion, a waste of energy and intelligence that is just plain damaging to the heart and soul of who we actually are, which is a magical, if often confused, and incredibly creative species, an inextricable part of an enormous, awesome living system that is trying very, very hard to actually support us. Now, when we're ranting about things being opposite of the way we want them to be, we're totally missing the point that this universe we live in is not designed to have everything be the same or fit together. We miss the fact that our idea of harmony is mistakenly based on a strange notion that everything and everyone should be us. We miss the fact that there's a physics to our world, to nature, to the very nature of life itself. Or put another way, oil and water are not supposed to mix. Day and night are not supposed to be the same, any more than up and down or left and right. Now, I have to pause here to be sure you heard what I just said. There are two kinds of opposites, if you will. First, we can consider day and night, left and right, up and down, plus and minus. These are the kind of opposites that are designed to work together. They're called complementarities. And these pairings, different yet somehow working together, provide the momentum for life to grow and evolve. Just think about plus and minus charges making a molecular bond. Yeah? As a biological species, we are made of these kinds of pairings without realizing it. A human embryo begins organizing its future body via the flows of embryonic fluid from the center left to right or right to left, directed by tiny cilia that move like a conductor's wand, guiding the formation of organs in their right placement and setting up the rhythms of our bipedal nature. This is left and right together, not in opposition. So what are we ranting about? Now, the other kind of pairing is a little more difficult for us. There are things that are dissimilar. They're not complementarities. They are designed not to mix, like oil and water, or different cultural practices, or just plain old different experiences of life. As Janine Benyus said so beautifully, life produces what is conducive to life. And the corollary is there is nothing that says it's all going to fit together the way we want it to. It just is what it is. So let me use that oil and water example as a metaphor. Oil and water, a pair of things that are neither the same nor totally dissimilar. They're both fluids. But they truly don't mix without some added force. So think about shaking up your salad dressing, right? And we can shake up that salad dressing and for a moment experience a marvelous union, yeah, a feast for the palate, and life seems very grand. But using our metaphor, if we look for things in life and nature and human culture that really won't ever go together, differing ideas of a situation, differing ways of expressing the sacred, different ways of eating or building or organizing a collective, even the ways nature works versus the way we've made some of our industries work. Applying external force to get them to mix just doesn't work. In fact, if we take a good look at life, we'll find more things that are simply different and don't mix. Then we'll find things that are the same or mix easily or match our personal sense of how things ought to be. And you know what? As a species, we tend to not like this truth. So we end up ranting and demanding fixes and harmony and ease, and on it goes. So we need to be cautious because I feel we humans are looking for an idea of harmony that does not exist in nature. We want it all to be like we want it to be. And we become living examples of one of my favorite lines from David Whyte's poetry. When we fight with our failings, we ignore the entrance to the temple itself. Meaning, we end up ranting useless rants about the things we think don't work, and we miss the truth about how life and nature and people actually work, how they actually thrive. And it's not through our misguided idea of harmony, but instead through a process, a principle of consciousness called harmonization. Now, our dreamed of harmony, it's a longing for relationship and inner peace. Really a longing for nothing to rant about anymore. And it's a good dream, a grand one. But the experience of harmonious existence is actually based in complementarities that come together to create new things. That experience is based in the total acceptance and honoring of the other, of what is different, and even of what is not mixable. The harmony we yearn for is actually created when we learn about everything that is different from ourselves and revel in the variety, celebrate the marvelous and the magical, wonder at the seemingly impossible beauty, and leave it as it is. This is harmonization. Within our own hearts, acknowledging the unique qualities that make each thing, each culture, situation, ecosystem, exactly what it is, and stop interfering. Learning how every different thing goes about living well, and letting ourselves be informed by that, enriched by that knowledge, and not interfering. This is how we realize our true place in the big scheme of things and find the most fertile places to put our gifts to work so we blossom too as part of that bigger system. So really, there's nothing to fight here. There's no use ranting that it doesn't all fit together. Consciousness thrives on variety, not similarity, and we have to get used to that. So if we can manage a bit of harmonization, even just a bit, instead of fighting for that false harmony, we'll actually begin to create and nurture peace and safety and collectivity. We'll learn when adding extra power is good. We'll learn that bringing different things together is how life thrives. I mean, think about it. Water starts off as gaseous ions of different charges. Bring it together, you get a fluid. That's the basis of life. Water didn't come into being by the universe putting similar things together. The more we harmonize instead of seeking false harmony, the sooner we experience the biggest, most important miracle of all. That underneath all the differences, all the seeming oil and water, the ups versus the downs, we finally arrive at the truth that underneath everything lies the unity of consciousness at work. Its great organizing principles converging all of life into growth and evolution. All the parts we like, all the parts we don't like. Everything has a coordinate and a function in the big system. And instead of trying to control it, we have to learn from it and then give ourselves that same honor, coming to know who we are as individuals and as a species, part of the big system of beautiful life. No need to fight any other part of the system, but just be our own selves, part of that system, flourishing. This is the power of harmonization. So you see, nothing to rant about.
I'm dancing.
Hey, and we're all dancing because Felipe has been so brilliant with us today.
Yes. It's time for our takeaways. Marty, what would you like to offer to our listeners as a takeaway?
The takeaway, what I want everyone to take away in their hearts today is the extraordinary experience of Felipe's heart and how he kept bringing us to our own hearts and somehow igniting our own blossoming moment to moment from our hearts through Felipe's heart out into the world. The importance of heart and coming from the heart and blossoming our love into the world. It was just so beautiful, Felipe. Thank you so much. So, Todd, what about you?
I have two takeaways. The first is the climate movement needs more polka and mariachi bands.
Great.
And the second is if you quiet, maybe step into nature, open your heart, I am guessing you will feel the momentum that Felipe shared today. So Felipe, what would you like to offer our listeners today as a last takeaway?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for having me today. I really enjoy our conversation. And I think I'm going to take two things that you just said. Less ranting, less complaining, people, and more dancing, more music, more nature, more love, compassion, understanding. That is the only way we as humans are going to be able to survive and thrive. Again, find that joy in nature, however it is that you enjoy nature. Don't be afraid, don't be ashamed, just be. Thank you very much.
Oh, Felipe, thank you. You are going to live and blossom in our hearts forever. We're very, very appreciative of you being with us. And thank you, Todd, also, as always. And thank you to our listeners for joining us today here at Leading from Being. We look forward to speaking with you again very, very soon.
Until next time, dance away.
thank you for listening to Leading from Being. You can learn more at leadingfrombeing.com, including contact information for Marty and Todd. Our theme song is courtesy of Cloud Cult.